Hello everyone, Spider Fanboy here to bring you the next part to What If Hinata Was on Team 7. So last time we left off, we just finished off the opening match between Naruto and Hinata, and Naruto did win, although Hinata certainly definitely gave him much more of a challenge than he ever would have expected. Not so much that he downplayed her abilities, but he never expected that she would be able to grow so quickly and so far. It definitely caught everyone by surprise, and she's definitely going to be earning that tuning rank. And now we're going to be going into the battle against Sasuke versus Gaara. So they begin their match, and Sasuke is not going to be holding back whatsoever. He activates his Sharingan from the get-go, and he's going to be analyzing Gaara. They have a bit of a stare-off, and Gaara ends up ending their little staring competition by sending out some sand to meet Sasuke, who actually just blurred um, out of motion into motion and had to stop just an inch from making contact with Gaara. This was a feint, however, as he was quick to make use of that body flicker and maneuver around in that new taijutsu speed, as well as his chakra control further boosting his physical capabilities. Yeah, he's gonna be landing some decent hits on Gaara, who he begins to freak out, and Sasuke retreats. He ends up letting loose a lightning beast running jutsu to kind of distract Gaara, have it kind of maybe he sends out like one or two of them, and they end up keeping Gaara and his stand busy as he quickly formulates the hand signs. I'm pretty sure it's only three hand signs for Raikiri, and he quickly puts them into motion, and he ends up calling out, or more so to himself. He ends up casting the Raikiri, and he ends up blitzing through Gaara's defenses. He's not going to be playing around. He kind of wants to get this over with so that he can get to his match with Naruto. And this kind of catches everyone off guard. They weren't really expecting him to go straight for a kill shot, but he's not really going to be holding himself back. Um, Gaara by this point has definitely dismantled all of the two lightning beasts that he let out, and he ends up sending a whole swarm of sand towards Sasuke to try to impede him. He has it like come up from the ground, but the very lightning chakra arcing off of his lightning blade ends up dispersing any attack that he tries to send towards him, and the main like tidal wave that's heading straight towards him, he just plows through using his Raikiri. And with his immense speed, he's about to reach Gaara, only for Gaara to, and he kind of like pulls the Shunshin, like a replacement with a sand clone. He says that he's not going to be taken down by any kind of speedy attacks ever again, only for him to kind of freeze up when he feels something pierce through his left shoulder. It kind of just comes out from behind, and he sees it's a hand coated in electricity, and he's kind of freaking out. He ends up looking behind him, and he sees that it's Sasuke, and he specifically notices the spinning of his Sharingan. He had cast a Genjutsu on him since the battle began, ever since the battle began, and he didn't even notice. In the outside world, everyone is actually kind of seeing the fact that Sasuke and Gaara are kind of still standing still. This has all been taking place in Gaara's mind, only for Gaara to end up breaking out of the Genjutsu, and he's kind of like freaking out. He's huffing and puffing. He never even got hit. He never even dealt with any real lightning beasts. All of that was just taking place in his mind over the course of like the minute that they've kind of been standing there. Sasuke is actually perfectly fine. That took a little bit of chakra, but he's expanded his reserves by a pretty ridiculous amount. So that was like a drop in the bucket. He'll be able to get into the real fight now, especially now that he's shaking Gaara up. He's gotten past that initial facade. From here on out, he's going to be reckless, but he also recognizes he's going to be more dangerous, so he's going to have to play things carefully. Um, he ends up he begins to maneuver around the battlefield, making use of his new speed. Gaara is trying to kind of keep up with him. You can almost kind of see it as like that battle between Byakuya and Ichigo. He's like throwing his hands up, he's guiding his sand all around, And whenever he gets close, Sasuke whips out his dual chakra blades coated with lightning, and he ends up tearing through the whole tsunamis of sand. Sometimes he even lets loose fire style jutsus like the Dragon Flame Bullet or a concentrated Great Fireball, so that he can slow down the movements of the sand by turning it into molten glass before using the leftover glass sculptures that are kind of just like sitting in the air frozen as like a bit of a distraction so that he can move out of the way. Since it's all warped, it's not a refined process. The glass ends up being kind of like a warped molten slag. So it definitely serves as a decent distraction for like the opening of the battle. But as Gaara begins to get more serious as he's trying to put more effort, Sasuke ends up substituting with a lightning clone. He conceals his presence with a genjutsu, which is more of a wide area effect genjutsu. It affects anyone who's directly looking at him, and he kind of disappears from view. Like I don't know how to exactly. It's like a camouflage spell. The more you try to focus on him, the harder it is. You're gonna be able. It will be to actually see him. And Gara, being as frantic as he is and not wanting to be hurt again, he's definitely panicking that he can't get a solid read on Sasuke. But then his instincts flare up, and he hears the chirping of birds. He is rushed by Sasuke, who's holding lightning in his hand, and he doesn't even notice the fact that he actually can hear it now. That it sounds a lot different than before, and he ends up going for it, only for it to disperse into a lightning clone. It's a large explosion of lightning. Another one seems to try to come at him from above. Um, so he ends up sending his sand to take care of it, only for it to explode into a literal fireball, which ends up causing the molten slag to actually rain down on him. Or at least it would if his own sand didn't instinctively move in the way. But because he's kind of covering himself and he was already focused on above, he doesn't notice Sasuke coming in directly from behind once more to actually stab through his gourd, and this time through his right shoulder. He kind of stabs through that top part of the gourd, and it goes directly through his right shoulder, and it nearly tears his own arm off. But luckily, Sasuke managed to avoid completely killing him. He just wanted to, disable him. And when Gara looks back to make eye contact with him, he actually briefly goes into his Mangekyo Sharingan to place a Genjutsu on him so that he can knock him out. And this works. It does put Gara into unconsciousness for a brief second. And this actually coincides with Kabuto and all of the Sound Ninja putting a Genjutsu on the entire crowd. And the Konoha Crush begins as Gaara begins to quickly lose control of Shukaku. Now, luckily, his Jonin sensei does end up intervening, and he's quick to wake Gaara up. He's quick to bring him out of the Genjutsu so that he can maintain his now very, very loose grip on Shukaku. And he has Tamari and Kankuro rush off. Sasuke's kind of worried. He wants to go after him, but he also wants to go for Naruto and Hinata, although they end up quickly reconvening with him on the battlefield. Hinata wasn't even affected. She was able to bring herself out almost instantly, and she ended up doing the same for Naruto. He might have been able to do it. Maybe he would have needed like a minute or so. Depends on if Kurama decided to intervene or not, especially if he would have sensed Shukaku acting up. But yeah, Hinata ended up waking him up before that kind of interaction could have even happened. Um, and they actually, they go to Kakashi real quickly. They ask him like, "What do we do?" And he's like, "You need to prioritize Gara. Right now, he's the most dangerous threat as a Jinchuriki. I'm giving you special permission. You need to go and you need to take him down as quickly as possible." Right now, Orochimaru is engaging in battle. He's dragging Hiruzen onto that rooftop so that they can have their fight with the Sound Force setting up the barrier. And unbeknownst to them, unbeknownst to everyone here, the Sound Four aren't the only ones who have made their arrival. Kimimaru is here. He ended up learning about, he kind of heard it through the grapevine um, in one of Orochimaru's, bases where he was recovering, that he has his eyes on two individuals in particular two potential vessels, and he already knows that he's dying. He knows that he was a pretty good pick, but now that he's dying, he needs to find a reliable pick, a proper successor, if you would, to act as Orochimaru's future vessel. So he, through like sheer force of will, forced himself out of bed and into shape so that he could participate in the invasion and track them down. And Orochimaru, seeing this, granted him a little special technique so that he could place the curse mark on them in place of Orochimaru if he found them. But unfortunately, it's a one shot only. At least for Kimimaru. Maybe if he was in better shape, he would have been able to perform it so that he could get it two shots or possibly even more. But as of right now, he'd only be able to handle a one shot. So he's actually going to be trailing Team 7. Kakashi's going to be participating in, in the battle against the Sound Invasion and the Sand Ninjas as well, the Sand Shinobi. And Jiraiya, while he does have his toads out, he actually has a shadow clone handle the invasion, whereas he ends up entering Sage mode. He summons Ma and Pa, and he begins to battle against the Sound 4, which actually disrupts the barrier. He's battling against them, and they all go into their curse mark stage 2. Orochimaru's kind of pissed, but even with the summoning of the Hokage, um, Hiruzen, seeing how much effort Jiraiya is putting forward, actually begins to whip out more and more of his. He begins to showcase the fact that he is called the professor for a reason. He mastered every jutsu in Konoha that wasn't that wasn't locked behind bloodline requirements. So he is making use of jutsus like he's making use of shadow clones, but he's also making use of shadow possession jutsu, the mind transfer jutsu, and with the Edo Tenseis not really having a mind of their own, and he only having to compete with Orochimaru's will, uh, and whatever level of sentience the Edo Tenseis have, they'd probably be able to actually mount a little bit of a resistance against Orochimaru, allowing him to use his shadow clones and perform the Reaper Death Seal on the Hokage, whereas he can put a lot more effort and focus into Orochimaru. But because he's using more intensive jutsu, more diverse jutsu, he does end up, in the same kind of situation as in canon. He is only able to seal away Orochimaru's arms, and Orochimaru has now lost the Sound 4, as they have been basically murdered by Jiraiya, or at the very least, he's incapacitated them, sealed them up, and sent them away, probably to Mount Miyaboku, with I don't know, like Gamabunta or Gamataro, one of those like pseudo boss summons that helped in the battle against Pain, kind of like watching over them. And they already have like paralysis seals, chakra seal tags, and probably something that he ended up creating to disable their sage mode or their curse mark, some kind of sealing tag that disrupts the intake of natural energy to disable their curse marks. So he's disabled them, and he ends up coming upon the scene with Orochimaru and Hiruzen now dead. And he actually goes straight for the kill against Orochimaru. He does end up landing a Sage Enhanced Rasengan directly into the guy's chest, but unfortunately he does end up, since it doesn't really require hand seals, he is able to drag himself out of his now corpse. But he's still in bad shape. It's noticeable. His arms are still all messed up. He can barely even move them. But a snake does kind of slither out of like his I don't know, like from out from under his shirt, and it ends up reverse summoning him, and he just got away in the nick of time as Jiraiya ended up slamming down a Sage Enhanced Big Ball Rasengan right where Orochimaru just landed. And he was like, damn it, once again, I failed. And he kind of ends up lamenting that if he hadn't been able to corner him, or if he had been able to corner him, if he had actually managed to corner him, Orochimaru might have done something drastic. And sure, it might have been a cool battle, but we'll probably be seeing some kind of drastic measures just a little later. So have some patience, everyone. Don't worry. Orochimaru is going to be getting his due diligence. But yeah, Sound 4 have been captured. Orochimaru is in much worse condition, and the Sound is beginning to retreat. And Jiraiya ends up expanding his sage mode so that he can sense in the distance. And he looks over, and he's like, "Is that the Nine Tails fighting against the One Tails?" Ah, crap! He ends up heading over as quickly as he possibly can. And as he begins to head over, he also sees the forest being replaced. The trees of the forest are now going to be replaced by bones. Yeah, not pretty. He also thinks he sees some black flames. So why don't we describe what was going on in the battle against Team 7, Team Gara, and Kimimaru. So in this battle, Kimimaru actually has some backup and assistance from maybe two or three very special individuals who, in any other circumstance, would actually be potential allies to Sasuke. But here, they are under Orochimaru's command, specifically under Kimimaru's. They are Karen, Jugo, who Kimimaru managed to talk into coming with him for his final mission, and Suigetsu. I'm pretty sure that's his name, Suigetsu. So yeah, this is not going to be a very clean battle. So Team Seven does, they have Shikamaru and Shino. They help in who did they end up taking down? They took down like Kankuro. Shino took down Kankuro. Shikamaru held off those other ninja, and Asuma helped them out. Came in for the last minute save. Ooh, sorry about that. But either way, that about goes about the same. Maybe Naruto leaves a shadow clone or something to help them out. And we they end up meeting up against they meet up with Garo, who's actually kind of messed up Tamari to a much worse condition. She's probably like bleeding, has a few bruises, broken bones, because Shukaku's influence is already beginning to show itself. He already has like that half sand arm that covers his face and is covering his arm, and he's about to transition into that little mini Shukaku demon form. And Naruto decides he can't hold back, so he begins to pull on the Kyuubi's chakra, and as he's doing this, he actually closes his eyes. It's a little bit of a risk. He doesn't know if this will work. He doesn't even know if the Kyuubi will cooperate. But surprisingly, he doesn't hear any kind of back talk. He doesn't hear any kind of rebuking from Kurama. It just happens. Kurama decides to allow it to happen, and he enters his Kyuubi enhanced Sage mode, the one that he initially unlocked against when he was talking to Kabuto, and he was getting heated during their discussion. He was in Sage mode, and then he let some of the Kyuubi's influence break through. So he has the whiskers. His eyes are still red, but they are in that same kind of cross shape, and his markings, his little highlights, they're more like a blood red color. So he's gonna be in that stage, and it's a lot more powerful than normal stage mode. Um, since thanks to Kurama, there being since tailed beasts are, it seems like they're kind of made of nature energy because they're chakra that disperses into nature itself and then reforms when they die. They're able to reform by dispersing into the chakra of the world itself, into natural energy. So they seem to have some kind of affinity for it. So he's actually able to blink into this mode actually a lot faster than he normally would for Sage mode. And he prepares himself to face off against Gara. He tells Hinata to tend to Tamari, and he tells Sasuke to back him up with his Genjutsu, try to put Shukaku back to sleep, and so that he has something that might be able to seal off Gaara's Jinchuriki chakra, but he's going to need an opening. That sand of his is no joke, especially if he's looking like this. And they end up beginning the battle. Sasuke actually has his Mangekyo Sharingan active, but he's not making any active use of his abilities. So once again, he's going to be able to help stave off his the progression of his blindness. Hinata ends up maneuvering Tamari over into a safe location. Gaara might try to send an attack or two, but not only are Naruto and Sasuke not going to allow this to happen, if any kind of attack does get through, maybe he sneaks some through like the cracks in the ground, it burrows underground, and it like comes up to burst out of the ground to try to take over Hinata and Tamari and turn them into hostages. She ends up engaging her protective trigram 64 palms. and just tears the sand into nothingness. And she's healing up Tamari, who is asking her what exactly do they plan to do. She should just kill him. She should just kill her if she's so that kind of get it over with, but don't hurt her brother or she'll kill her, even in her bad condition. And Hinata's kind of ignoring her, but she does eventually answer that she has someone who's close to her, someone she values more than almost anything in the world, who had to suffer the same kind of loneliness Gara suffered. She never left him alone, and she stood by his side. It was difficult, wasn't easy, but eventually she was able to build herself up so that she could stand by his side and help build him up as well. She became strong both in terms of her power and her abilities and in terms of her character. And because of that, because she was able to stand by his side and support him, this person, and she's obviously hinting towards Naruto, and Tamari has definitely pieced it together by now, seeing Naruto fight against Gara. She notes that he's grown into someone absolutely remarkable, someone who one day will claim the title of the greatest Hokage this world has ever seen. And she wants to be there by his side and achieve her own level of greatness for herself. And she asks Tamari, hearing all of that, does she really think she's going to try with a kunai through her heart? And this kind of gets Tamari to, she's a little quiet, she's contemplating, she's being healed, and she's actually going to be in decent shape when this is all over. Exhausted, but she'll be in decent shape. And Hinata herself is definitely getting a little tired, but it's nothing that'll completely take her out of the equation. Unfortunately, with her Byakugan active so that she could keep sight of Gara, she ends up catching some individuals closing in on their location, which she ends up relaying to Naruto and Sasuke. Naruto, by this point, has progressed his QB enhanced Sage mode, now stacking the One Tail's cloak, the One Tail version 1 cloak on top of it, and he was able to sense them coming too. He's properly facing off against Gaara, who's in his little mini Shukaku form, and they're even. Naruto's actually stronger. He's getting closer and closer to being able to overtake Gaara's sand, using the that kind of aura of Sage mode that they have, in conjunction with the corrosiveness of Kurama's chakra and his own chakra cloak. He has his chakra cloak surrounding his body and like a mini Sage cloak surrounding Kurama's chakra cloak. So yeah, he's doing a lot of devastating blows to his sand. He's able to keep it contained, and he ends up telling Sasuke to back Hinata and the blonde girl up so that while he takes on Gaara, he'll be able to handle things from here. But he needs to make sure that nothing happens to Hinata, and Sasuke agrees. Although he tells Naruto that if he dies, he's killing him himself, or that Hinata might. He's not really sure which one to go with. And Naruto kind of chuckles to himself. He's like, "Yeah, I get you. Don't worry. When this is all over, we're gonna go meet up at Ichiraku's. My treat this time." And he's like, "Oh, really?" He's like, "Yeah. After all, I still need to get my match. I need to make sure you're properly fed so that you can't complain when I beat you." And they chuckle a little bit, although with this brief distraction, not only has Kimimaru and his little gang of Hylians have arrived, but Gaara has begun transforming into Shukaku. He tells them that he'll take care of things from here on out, but he needs to back up Hinata now. So he ends up charging into the fray. He kind of grabs the now transforming Gaara, who's growing larger and larger. He just grows the size of his chakra arm, and he ends up flinging him out further into the forest as a second tail begins to sprout. And he actually quickly formulates the seals. He ends up summoning Gamabunta, and he tells them that he really needs his backup right now. And Gamabunta's like, "What is it that you want? And what's with all that chakra? You're really polluting the natural energy, it's turning all negative." And he's like, yeah, we don't really have the time for that. Look. And he ends up pointing at the now fully formed Shukaku. He's like, "Yeah, I need your help." He's like, "I need your help. Can we pull off a combination jutsu?" He's like, "Yeah, you're going to have to transform for me. You think you got the chakra?" And he's like, "Oh, yeah, don't worry. I definitely have the chakra." And he's like, "Alright, just make sure that you know what you're doing." And he ends up transforming Gamabunta into Kurama. And here it's going to be like a proper full-blown battle between the two of them. But real quickly, while this is happening, Sasuke, Hinata, and Tamari end up entering battle-ready stances to face off against Kimimaru and his little team that he's gathered up. Suigetsu is definitely, he wants to get into the battle. Jugo might be a little apprehensive, but Kimimaru tells him that he'll be able to help control him. He'll hold him back from going too far, and to not worry. And Karin is kind of just standing awkwardly to the side, observing. She's kind of intimidated. She was told that she might be useful in restraining the Jinchuriki, although she wasn't really told which one. And considering she sees two-tailed beasts out there, one of which is the weakest, which she feels maybe she'd be able to do, but the other one is the nine tails, and there's no way she's tackling that whole monster. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, she has the same Uzumaki golden sealing chains, the adamantine sealing chains. I believe that's what they're called. The same chains that Kushina has that can restrain even the nine tails. Although, she's a lot younger, not nearly as trained, so yeah. But either way, their battle begins. Kimimaru ends up actually engaging his curse mark straight from the get-go. He wants to really test what these two are capable of, and he tells Suigetsu to take on the daughter of the Kazukage. And he kind of laments he wanted to fight against the strong guy, but whatever. He'll just end this quickly. So he ends up engaging into battle against Tamari. Not too interesting. He doesn't really have the Executioner's Blade, but he does have his family jutsu, and he is able to increase his strength, buff up his muscles and stuff. So it might be a little interesting since he's probably a bit more of a mid and close range fighter, even without his blade. But Tamari is able to hold him back. She's practically tuning already, so they'd probably be at around a similar level of power. Jugo ends up kind of, engaging a little bit of his power. He just lets himself, formulate like a monster claw, and he has some markings going up his face. He begins to get a little unsettled, but Kimimaru ends up kind of playing a hand on him, calms him down a little bit, and he ends up reiterating to Karin. He says, "Don't focus on the Jinchuriki for now. They're keeping each other occupied. If anything goes crazy, I want you to restrain Jugo using those chains of yours." She's like, "I don't even know if it would work on him." She's like, and he's like, and he just kind of brushes this off. He says, "You will restrain Jugo and stop him from losing control." And she's like, "Okay." Um, Hinata and Sasuke kind of frowned at this, but they end up engaging in battle. Sasuke's going to be taking on Kimimaru initially, whereas Hinata will be facing off against Jugo. The both of them notice the weird energy kind of formulating around them. It's similar to what Naruto was using, what they just saw him use. They never really questioned him about it. They didn't really have the chance since, they were fighting for their lives and they're doing it even now. But they notice that there's a little bit more corrupted, a bit of a corrupted aspect to it. Now, Naruto's corrupted aspect, they can easily explain away coming from the Nine Tails influence on top of it. But they don't really know what it is about this that's setting them off, but it does remind them of that person they fought in the forest, which they were informed it was Orochimaru. I wouldn't be surprised if Kakashi, Anko, and Jiraiya decided to tell their their temporary students or their students over the course of the month. Anko probably would have shared a little bit about the curse mark, but nothing too in depth. Just that Orochimaru is not one to be trusted on his promises for power. And they're aware of this, which is why Kimimaru, who actually is attempting to kind of make a bit of a sales pitch, although it's a little more cult sounding, like join us and Orochimaru will give you the power to make your wildest dreams come true. You will be you will be a new god. You will be someone who will carry out Orochimaru's will, and in return he will grant you your heart's deepest desire. He sounded kind of culty, and they end up rebuking his offer. And Sasuke actually tries to cast a genjutsu on Jugo, and he's actually able to cause him to, kind of pause, gets him to kind of stutter in his actions, and the spreading of his transformation actually pauses, which Kimimaru ends up noticing, and he begins to make more and more use of his bone style. Ugh, I don't really like the time. His Keke Genkai, his bones. He begins to make better use of them. He's getting a lot more lethal, and Sasuke has to hold him off using his chakra blades, which is about dead even in terms of like how powerful they are. So they're able to hold themselves off. He's able to hold off Kimimaru decently well. And Hinata she decides to take the initiative against Shugo, who is now, kind of frozen from the Genjutsu. She ends up charging in. She makes use of her paralyzing fist. She's hoping she can just shut him down and keep him out of the fight. It was clear from his earlier behavior he can't really control himself and that he was hesitant to make use of his power. So she ends up kind of disabling him. She goes for striking at his various muscles, more so where he's not, where he doesn't have his ultra thick transformation that kind of increases his durability, more so on his normal human flesh. She's like tearing into his muscles, at his tendons, disabling him, keeping him from moving around the battlefield, striking at various pressure points and chakra points to kind of diffuse the nature energy that his body is absorbing. And it actually works. She's actually able to shut him down, and she ends up kind of booting him away from the fight, which Karin ends up, she pops in and she ends up kind of catching Jugo's now unconscious body. And Kimimaru decides that he's had enough. It's about time that he ends this and brings them to Orochimaru. Although he does end up coughing a bit when he begins to transition into his curse 2 or his stage 2 curse mark. While this is happening, Naruto he's beginning to gain the upper hand. Shukaku's definitely doesn't want to go back in, and Naruto has actually released his enhanced Sage mode, his QB enhanced Sage mode. He's been using it to upkeep the transformation, waiting for a proper opening, and he's also been sending out a few jutsu to impede any attacks Shukaku has been trying to use, like his air bullets, making use of his sand. Uh, while looking like Kurama, Gamabunta will, let out like toad oil, and in response, Naruto, or maybe Naruto will let out a whole bunch of toad oil. Or no. Gamabunta will let out a whole bunch of toad oil, and Naruto will end up lashing out with some kind of airstrike, and one of those claws, sides of wind, those blades of wind, and like I mentioned before, they're superheated, and at this level, they're superheated enough that they actually kind of catch flame as they travel through the air, and they end up lighting up the toad oil, and it definitely sticks and mixes with Shukaku's sand body. So he's actually able to keep him pinned, and he ends up leaving Gamabunta as a whole forest of bones ends up tearing through the forest. The forest is deforested by a forest of bones, basically. And Kimimaru is going to start his second stage of the battle against Sasuke and Hinata. And Sasuke ends up instinctively protecting himself and Hinata with Susanoo. He ends up bringing out the ribcage Susanoo, and Kimimaru's bones aren't able to pierce through it at first when he initially tries to get to him. He decides that he wants to take care of the Jinchurikis while he's at it, although he can actually kind of see that they're taking care of themselves, so maybe he can just focus on these two. And he ends up looking towards Sasuke, who's making eye contact with him through his Susanoo, and he's like, "Oh, I just made a mistake," as he is caught in another Mangekyo Sharingan Genjutsu, and he ends up launching Hinata through the. He kind of like grabs her and tosses her through his Susanoo ribcage. She ends up streaking towards Kimimaru with a Chidori in hand, and Sasuke himself is quick to launch himself with a Raikiri, and they actually kind of meet in midair, the two of them, since Sasuke is faster than Hinata. They meet directly at Kimimaru. They kind of conjoin their hands, and they end up charging a whole big ass lightning blade. But Kimimaru ends up waking up, and he actually rears back his bone drill spear, and they end up clashing with one another. Um, Sasuke decides that he really needs to give it his all, so he ends up casting Amaterasu and Flame Control to coat the lightning instead of just their hands, to coat the lightning itself with Amaterasu, and to have it creep up Kimimaru's. It like darts across Kimimaru's bone spear, because it's kind of like blocking the way. That thing is really large, but it creeps along Kimimaru's bone spear onto his arm, and then it shapes into blades of Amaterasu that end up piercing into his skin. And Kimimaru ends up kind of falling off. He kind of falls out from, from how he was connected into the bone thing, and he ends up kind of falling out. He begins to de-transform, but before he does, um, he ends up pointing his left arm, which is undamaged and not yet burnt, and he ends up sending out a snake that kind of flies out of his skin. It kind of comes from his curse mark at his chest, which it just barely manages to escape the Amaterasu. It ends up coming out from that curse mark on his chest. It curls itself around his left shoulder and ends up launching from his hand directly towards the two of them. They're kind of left panting and huffing and puffing. Sasuke ends up lighting its body aflame with a Materasu though. Before it can get to either of them, he's able to light it aflame with a Materasu, and he also instinctively brought up his Susanoo arm. The rib cage ends up forming, and the arm sprouts out quickly, and it grabs the now burning white snake and crushes it between its hands, and it ends up dying. So no curse marks properly, and the two of them end up kind of their chakra control slips since they're kind of exhausted, and they allow themselves to kind of land on the ground. He ends up extinguishing the flames on Kimimaru's corpse so that the flames don't spread on accident. He doesn't want to take any risk, but he definitely feels the pain. Every cell in his body begins to ache. I'm pretty sure that was like a description that he used in the manga, that like every cell in his body ached, and like it was constant chronic pain for him to use the Mangekyo. So his vision briefly blurs, and Hinata has to kind of stabilize him, and Tamari ends up coming back into the fray, carrying Suigetsu's unconscious body. Um, she was able to knock him out, although she is very much drenched and soaked for all of her troubles. Kankuro is probably making his way over by now. He ended up finding Karin and the unconscious Jugo. Luckily, he's still unconscious, and he kind of ended up tying them up, and he kind of drags them over. He didn't really take the opportunity to kill, but he thinks that they might be good hostages, maybe a peace offering towards the Leaf, so that they can get some kind of amnesty or something, or some kind of asylum, or basically so that they're not killed. Kind of get them off the hook by turning over some sound shinobi. But he sees the whole mess and he's like, "Whoa, what did I just come across? I just fought a guy with bugs, and now this whole mess, black fire, big old bones. What the hell happened?" And he looks over towards Tamari, and she's like, "Don't even ask. I don't even know what's happening anymore." And as this is happening, Naruto has finally managed to, since Shukaku was kind of on fire, um, Jiraiya ended up coming out of seemingly nowhere with a big ball Rasengan, with an ultra big ball Rasengan, kind of blew up Shukaku's head as he was screaming in pain, and this ended up exposing Gaara, and Naruto launched himself at full speed towards Gaara and slapped that chakra ceiling tag directly onto his face, and this ended up, causing Shukaku to go back into his body, and he grabbed Gaara's body and managed to maybe use some ninja wire in the kunai to kind of throw at one of the trees or one of the really large bones and swing them in close so that they can land properly. And he's carrying Gaara's, for now, unconscious body, although he wakes up and he kind of freaks out briefly, but they end up having their talk for a minute. They kind of sit down in private, and Naruto ends up talking to him. He gives him the talk no jutsu, and he ends up bringing him over to his siblings in the little clearing where everyone is gathered. Jiraiya was keeping an eye, but on Naruto and Gaara, but he decides that it seems like they have this handled. Um, Although he does introduce himself now that the kids are all gathered, and he's like, "Yeah, I think everything's just about finished for now." His clone that was still in Konoha ends up dissipating, and it gives him the information. The invasion is finally over, so they can go back to Konoha and discuss everything. Here the Sand siblings are actually going to be taken in by Jiraiya, mainly for questioning. He's like, "Don't worry, we're not really going to do anything to you. You have my word on that, but you are going to have to be taken in just for some questioning. I know you guys will probably have a lot of answers that we're really going to need. So we're just going to need you to cooperate for now. I won't let anything happen to any of you. And if you really want, it might cost your village some, but I'll be able to fix up that little seal on on that Gara kid. Give you some proper night's sleep for the first time in what I'm guessing could have been years. And this actually gets all of the Sand siblings to kind of look up at him in awe. And he also looks over towards Kimimaru's now dead corpse, that's like burnt and charred on like his right side. And he also looks over towards the Sound kids. Karin is the only one who's still conscious, and he's like, "I'll be helping you. I'll be talking to you three too. So don't you worry." And he ends up taking them all back to Konoha. So we end up getting into the aftermath. We do have, the funeral for the third Okage. It's definitely a very tear-jerking affair, and Jiraiya's gonna be kind of investigating the curse marks. He's looking for ways to, now that he has the Sound Four under Konoha custody. He's gonna be looking into them, and he's also gonna be looking into Jugo. Um, he ends up telling him straight up that Kimimaru did die, and this probably causes him to rage out for a minute, but he's able to eventually get him to calm down using his sage mode. And he actually tells him if he helps him figure out a way to disable the curse marks, he'll help him control his powers. He'll take him to Mount Miyaboku where he can live in peace and just never have to fight, and where he can learn to control his abilities, control his intake of nature chakra, so that he won't be losing control again. And Jugo actually, it definitely takes some time. It takes some consideration, and it takes some convincing. But but he ends up taking him to Mount Miyaboku. He introduces him to the atmosphere, to the toads, and he ends up agreeing. Although he's not really going to be too trusting or fond of Konoha, since one of their ninja ended up killing Kimimaru. But beyond that, uh, our main heroes and the whole of the Rookie 12, they're going to be recovering. They're going to be recuperating. Um, the Sound 4 are going to be taken into Konoha custody. Maybe Anko takes a little bit of pity on them. She wants to really help them out. Some of them are kind of, beyond. They're kind of all beyond helping because they're very much sadistic little bastards. But then again, so was Gara. So we'll just have to see now, won't we? They'll probably be on some kind of probation. They're definitely going to be held in custody, but Jiraiya specifically is going to be looking over their seals so that he can figure out some kind of way to remove them. Same for Anko, finally. And with Jugo around, he's definitely going to have a lot on his table going forward. And it does not help that the council are trying to push him into becoming the next Hokage. He decides he needs to find Tsunade and quickly so that he can get her into the position and so that he can focus on helping these kids with the curse marks and finally ridding them of Orochimaru's influence. Um, this is enough to get them to get the two elders to back off for now. Danzo might try something, but the whole village is on high alert, and Jiraiya specifically isn't going to be letting him get away with anything. Not for now. And certainly not if he can help it. Not with these kids. So he actually is going to be keeping them in Mount Miyaboku restrained and under custody, so that he can study their curse marks with the help of the sages of Mount Miyaboku. Ma and Pa, and probably even the Great Toad Sage. And they say that they may need some help from the snakes of Ryuchi Cave, considering that's really what Orochimaru actually based his curse mark on. It wasn't just based off of Jugo's transformation, but it was also based on the transformative properties of Snake Sage Mode. So Anko is going to be she's going to be doing a little something. She's going to be trying to take control of the snake summons and try to get an audience with the Great White Snake Sage. Because I think it was kind of implied that Manda was like a bit of an outcast despite being the boss summon. Because Orochimaru failed the trials of Ryuchi Cave, and he really only had his basic summons and Manda. He never really had any kind of other diverse snake summons. I wouldn't be surprised if Anko ends up, talking to the White Sage, and it's definitely a tentative affair, but they'll be looking into it. It's something they're going to be trying to work towards in the future, trying to undo Orochimaru's defilement of their sage mode, of their sage arts, and so maybe there's some potential there. Aside from that, we also have Karin, Sugetsu, and Karin and Sugetsu mostly. Sugetsu would probably agree to to some kind of, he kind of has to be in prison for a while, but they end up telling him like they may be able to work something out with him, enlist him as a shinobi of Konoha, and he says that he really only cares about being one of the swordsmen, getting his hands on these seven swordsmen of the mist. And they're like, yeah, I don't think we're going to be able to help you with that. So they end up locking him up for now. They'll see if they can try approaching him again later. But for now, he's going to be locked up because they don't need to get into another conflict with another village. They're still trying to fix things between them and Sunagakure, the village of the stand. Speaking of which, they do end up releasing Baki and his team, and they end up going back to Sunagakure. Although here, Gaara and Naruto have another talk, and Gaara is beginning to mellow out a bit. He's starting to approach that level of being a mellow, quiet, soft boy that he was in in the end of part one and throughout Shippuden. He's gonna go back to Sunagakure, and he now has a new goal. He wants to kind of follow in a similar footstep to his new friend, and he wants to bring peace and to ensure that nothing can ever happen. That what happened to him can never happen to anyone ever again, whether it be in his village or in any other village. And he decides he can start by becoming the next Kazekage. So yeah, he now has his ambition to become Kazekage. Just that little bit earlier. Um, Karin, when it's discovered that she's an Uzumaki and she ends up revealing the fact that the Uzumaki are a clan, this actually brings some surprise to Naruto. He's kind of been shadowing Jiraiya in his investigations with all of the Sound Ninja and their curse marks and all their situations. So when he ends up finding out that the Uzumaki are a proper clan, he's kind of mystified. He's in awe the fact that they have such abilities, and he kind of laments, that he doesn't have red hair. He thinks having red hair would be cool, um, or the chains that she ends up showing off. He's like, oh, that would be so cool if I had those. And then he ends up discovering about all the bite marks across her body, and how she was basically used as like a healing tool, and that definitely pisses him off and pisses Hinata off and definitely pisses Sasuke off. Another clan nearly driven to extinction, and the fact that Naruto is a part of such a clan in such a similar fashion. Like once again, he's kind of drawing the parallels between them in his mind, and this only cements that Naruto really is like a family to him. He really is like another brother. But they're not gonna have too much time to unpack all of this. But Karin is definitely gonna be under watch and specifically under protection. She's gonna be taken in. She actually moves in with Naruto into his apartment, which is like properly clean since he has two friends that are almost over like all the time. They're always hanging out with one another, whether they're at Sasuke's compound, which is normally very empty, but recently they've been visiting him in his place so that he's not feeling so lonely. Um, Visiting the Hyuga compound or just places around the Hyuga compound with Hinata, and mainly at Naruto's apartment since there's not really too much baggage there, and it's a nice little place when it's kept properly clean. So Karin's gonna actually be moving in with Naruto for a bit, um, until she can get situated with a little bit more permanent residence. But this is definitely gonna be a nice starting point. Karin is now going to be developing a little bit of a crush on Sasuke, just that little bit. And we end up moving forward into the Tsunade retrieval arc. So here, all of Team 7. Jiraiya decides to bring along all of Team 7. He normally would only bring along Naruto, but he's kind of interested in the kids, kind of a little group in his little team. Kakashi is probably going to be not completely taken out of commission, but they're going to be, the group. Kakashi ends up allowing this to happen. Really, he didn't have too much of a choice, but yeah, he's like, yeah, go on ahead. And so Team 7 is actually going to be heading out with Jiraiya. Kakashi's going to be staying back. He's going to be helping Anko. She feels that she's going to need to get into shape if she wants to meet up with the boss summons of Ryuchi Cave. If Orochimaru couldn't pass their trials and gain their respect for the entirety of the summoning clan, she doubts she would be able to. So she's actually going to be training with Kurenai and Kakashi. Get into decent shape, probably even with the other Jonin senseis. since they're gonna have to be in Konoha to help keep the place safe. So they're beginning their reconstruction, and yeah, Team Seven is gonna be heading out with Jiraiya to find Tsunade. While this is happening, not too much training. Maybe Naruto shows off his wind style Rasengan properly. They actually show off their techniques properly. Sasuke ends up showing off the Raikiri and the Raikiri and the tracking feint. The the lightning beast running jutsu. Hinata actually shows off her Chidori Nagashi, her Chidori Senbon that she really kind of wanted to use, and she kind of just forgot because she's still used to normally using just normal Senbon, and her Chidori Eiso, the Chidori True Spear. Um, they're like, oh, that's so cool, and she's like, she ends up mentioning that she wants to kind of rework it into one solid technique, but for now, this will definitely do. And Naruto ends up showing off his one style Rasengan. He shows off Sage Mode and he ends up explaining the mechanics of it. And they're kind of interested in, the abilities of Sage Mode and how it could help you in battle. And he also shows off his. He tells them about the Rasen Shuriken. He can't really show it off. Even on their journey, there isn't really an area where he can properly show it off. And he's like, maybe if we had like a mountainous area, but right now we're still along the forest where people, we're still passing by the forests where people would normally pass by on their normal travels. They're like on the normal dirt roads of the land of fire. So a lot of people will be passing through here. So definitely doesn't want to mess up the place. But he's like, yeah, no, he'll definitely get to show him in like one of the training grounds eventually. But he's like, yeah, he contemplated using it against Shikaku, but he didn't want to risk it doing any damage to Gaara. Definitely would have been a bit of a dangerous gambit, especially with the way that he was in that Sage mode, QB enhanced Sage mode, with the way that that Kurama's chakra carried into his wind chakra and heated it up. He may have caused some really bad damage to Shikaku and could have definitely risked killing Gaara with how powerful it is. But yeah, he was like, yeah, it's pretty insane technique, and probably gets him some ribbing from Sasuke. He's like, yeah, right, impressive technique. Are you sure this technique really even exists? And he's like, sure, too, it does. And they get into some banter. Hinata's playing mediator, and Jiraiya's kind of like smiling at them from the corner of his eye. He definitely sees some various parallels. He sees like a little bit of his own team in them, but he also sees a little bit of Kushina and Minato, and in Hinata and Naruto. Some aspects are switched, but there are there there are some pretty powerful similarities, and even between Naruto and even looking at the three of them, he's actually also reminded briefly of Nagato. Um, I really just forgot all Nagato, Yahiko, and Konan. There we go. I legit forgot Yahiko's name for a second there. But Itachi and Kasami do end up arriving in the Leaf. Kakashi actually, when he's met with Tsukuyomi, he actually engages Kamui, and this actually almost causes Itachi to just immediately burn him on the spot because he recognizes that kind of Mangekyo Sharingan, and he wonders what kind of connection they have. He he's like, oh, okay, so Madara definitely isn't the real Madara. That's definitely something I can pull on him later, but don't wanna. That's gonna be like a bit of a gambit card. Like that's a card he wants to keep close to his chest. If he ends up calling out Madara for not really being Madara, that could definitely change things drastically. That could cause him to have a very bad reaction. So, hmm, he's like definitely going to be filing that away for later. But here, Kakashi is not going to be, he's not going to be knocked down into a coma for like until Tsunade shows up. He's definitely going to be out for the count, but he's not going to be in a coma. He's just going to be. It definitely puts a mental strain on him, but he's not going to be knocked into a coma. Is what I'm trying to say. Anko being around doesn't really change too much since she's been training with the she's been training with the Jonin senseis, but yeah, she's not gonna be too much of a crazy factor to throw in there. Just a little fun thing to mention. She does probably help keep pull Kakashi away from the battle when Guy shows up. Kakashi's definitely shaken up, but he actually briefly considers making use of Kamui against like Kisame, maybe take out that weapon of his. Um, but he doesn't get the opportunity. They end up retreating, and yeah, they're gonna be hunting down Team Seven, specifically Naruto. But when Itachi, he ends up piecing together that all of Team Seven is missing, he's like, ooh, so I might be finding Sasuke. I guess we'll see. I guess we will see. But we end up, in place of the normal Rasengan training. Here, the whole of Team Seven is going to be learning Rasengan, um, as in Hinata and Sasuke. And Hinata is actually going to be adding in some of her fire element training. So I mentioned a while ago, I think like back in part one, that officially her lightning transformation or her elemental transformations are lightning and fire, and she ended up shelving the fact that she had fire as one of her chakra natures. So she's going to be training it not only with Sasuke but with Jiraiya as well. And Hinata herself, she already kind of was able to pull off the Rasengan, even if it was kind of difficult. But here, getting proper instruction, she's able to refine it and get it down, similarly to how Naruto does. She can use it from either hand. She can use it in both hands, although that's a little bit more chakra intensive. And she wonders if she can kind of incorporate it into her fighting style. And she's also, doing basic elemental training for fire style. She's like trying to burn the leaf instead of trying to cut it. She's trying to burn the leaf on her own. And it's not going to be long before she gets that down. She's going to be moving on to like trying to light fires all on her own, create like a purely sustained fire like in her hand, and trying to learn some jutsu from Sasuke to improve her ability to make use of it. She's thinking about possibly making use of it in combat in taijutsu, but she's not exactly sure how to go about it. But she'll be figuring it out eventually. And as for Sasuke, he's mainly just going to be learning the Rasengan, and it's going to be by product. It's going to be improving his chakra control overall. And Naruto is going to be learning some sealing from Jiraiya. He's been bugging him about it, so he's going to be introduced into the basics of sealing ever since he learned about his heritage as an Uzumaki. He bugged Jiraiya, so he's going to be learning some proper seals. He's mainly getting into the introduction of it, but with his shadow clones, he's able to get through a lot of the reading material that Jiraiya has given him very quickly. And when we get to that scene of them, chilling in the hotel room as Jiraiya is out and about, um, and Itachi and Kisame end up approaching the door. Um, the thing is that Hinata kind of sensed them coming. She had her Byakugan on as she was lighting, and then she was igniting, and then putting out a flame in her hands. And she was keeping her Byakugan on so that she could focus on her chakra flowing through her pathways. But it wasn't long before she ended up detecting some, since she was kind of zoned out, focused on her training. But when Kisame and Itachi ended up entering from like the lobby, like they were entering through the front door at the lobby, she ended up kind of snapping out of her trance, and she pointed out that there were two individuals with very high chakra signatures, Jonin level, if not above, or well above Jonin level. One of them almost has the same reserves as Naruto, like the same level of reserves as Naruto. And the other one, and she ends up kind of pausing, and she looks over to Sasuke, and he's like, "What? What is it?" And he ends up being he was kind of practicing with the Rasengan. He's been getting it down so that he's like doing a little exercise where like he changes the shape of it or the size of it, like it'll go into like that mini ball Rasengan that like Boruto uses, and then expanding to the normal size. And like he'll have two of them, so like the one on his right will be growing in size as the one on his left shrinks, and then it'll begin to switch. The left will begin to grow as the right begins to shrink. Little exercise that Naruto shared with them, and Naruto and his shadow clones were reading up on a variety of sealing, of reading material around sealing, being introduced to it, and learning about how it's done. and probably even has a few working on like their calligraphy, their ability to draw the seals and stuff. And they all kind of snap out of this. His shadow clones end up poofing, and he kind of takes the minute to assimilate all the knowledge as he's also listening in, as Hinata begins to give a description. One of them kind of has the appearance of a shark. He's wearing and they're both wearing cloaks, black cloaks with red clouds. One of them has a hidden mist band that's scratched out, so obviously a Rognin. He has black spiky hair, shark-like eyes, little gills on his face, blue skin, sharp teeth. He basically looks like a human shark, and he has some kind of weird thing on his back. She's not sure if it's a weapon, a living creature, some kind of summon. She's really not sure what it is, but it has its own chakra signature. And the other man, shorter than the shark man, has black hair, Sharingan eyes, lines down his face, a scratched out Konoha headband. She looks over to Sasuke, and Naruto does the same. As he ends up, his eyes kind of, his eyes kind of dilate. They shrink. I think that's what dilating. I don't know. His eyes kind of, they shrink for a brief second, and he ends up muttering Itachi, and he almost tries to barge out the door, though Naruto gets in the way. He's like, "Get out of my way, Naruto!" And Naruto tells him, "No, no. You've told us what kind of monster that guy is. We can't face him alone. All right, we can't risk it. We need to get to Pervy Sage. He's definitely formed that nickname for him by now. All initial respect aside, he does end up discovering that Jiraiya is a super pervert. So he definitely gives him the name of Pervy Sage, and Hinata doesn't even try to get him to call him anything else. She agrees. But Hinata ends up joining in, places a hand on Sasuke's shoulder, and they end up coming up with a plan. The three of them actually make use of a technique Jiraiya decided to teach them. He was teaching it to Naruto over the course of his training over the month, and he was able to find he was definitely able to, or he could have even learned it on the way, just like a little miscellaneous jutsu to help the kids out. With Sasuke and Hinata with their chakra control and their jutsu, and Naruto himself with his own chakra control and his shadow clones, they're able to get down that camouflage jutsu that he uses. And Naruto actually casts a camouflage jutsu on a toad summon that he has kind of swallow them up. He's like, "Yeah, I know it's gross, but come on, come on, come on. We need to get inside. I know it's gross, but just trust me on this." So they actually end up hiding in a camouflage toad, and they end up camouflaging themselves, as it doesn't just camouflage their bodies. I'm adding a little thing that it also causes them to suppress their chakra signatures. That's why the chakra control is so important. And he has like three clones, which he has transformed. They basically take up the same positions that they were doing before. Hinata, one looks like Hinata, and uh, the toad is probably casting some kind of genjutsu to make it look like it's lighting up fire in his hands. Though clone of Sasuke is looking like it's doing the Rasengan again. Although since it's a Naruto clone just transformed as Sasuke, it's not that hard. And more Naruto clones are still reading up and doing their calligraphy. There's the knock on the door. One of the Naruto clones, the one that's like practicing the reading, it ends up gets up, opens the door. They're met with Itachi and Kisame, and a fight ends up breaking out. The Sasuke clones ends up getting up, and it charges a big ball Rasengan, charges forward. Um, Itachi kind of just grabs him and throws him out into the hallway, and all the Naruto clones end up poofing except for one of them. It makes it look like it's the main one, and it gets up to try to assist in battle. And Hinata is quick to do the same. The clone looks like it's engaging the Byakugan, although it's really just modifying its transformation jutsu to look like it's activating it. Or no, it would have looked like it had it active the whole time because that's what Hinata was doing. And they end up trying to engage in battle. It's a little difficult for the Hinata clone to make it look like it knows the Gentle Fist, but Naruto's fought against her for so long and has had so many shadow clones spar against her that he knows her fighting style pretty well, almost as good as he knows his own. Um, so it's actually able to decently mimic the Gentle Fist, but the Hinata clone is gonna be kind of like given the same Sasuke treatment, tossed out into the hallway by Itachi, whereas Kisame ends up grabbing the Naruto clone and feeds its own big ball Rasengan to Samehada, and also smacks him away to the other kid on the opposite side of the hallway. Itachi is going to be facing off against the clone of Hinata and Sasuke, or we can even say that Hinata and Sasuke have probably learned the Shadow Clone Jutsu themselves at this point, so they ended up using it. But either way, they engage in like a little brief spat, whereas Naruto, um, the three of them end up leaving the Toad. They're still in the room as the fight is going on in the hallway. He ends up summoning a messenger Toad to. He ends up telling the Toad to get Jiraiya as quickly as possible, and ends up poofing away to do just that. And they end up deciding. As Naruto steps out, he shows that he's already in Sage mode. He's like, okay, we need to ambush them. Don't hold anything back, and we need to make sure that we try to put them down and hold them off. And if that doesn't work, we need to just hold them off for as long as possible until Pervy Sage gets here. And Sasuke already has his Mangekyo active, although he warns them not to do anything stupid. The two of them warn him not to do anything stupid, and he says, "Yeah, don't worry about me. I'll make sure not to get myself killed." And Hinata ends up engaging her Byakugan, and she begins to, she coats her hands with her lightning enhanced chakra scalpels, and they get ready to open the door, and dash out into the hallway, and engage in their ambush. And I think that's where I'm gonna leave it. I'm gonna leave it with another cliffhanger. So Team 7 is about to engage in battle against the Akatsuki duo of Kisame and Itachi. Jiraiya is going to be making his entrances pretty soon, and yeah, we have a lot of the Sound Four. The Sound Four are imprisoned, and they're being used to examine the curse seal, and it's similar to for Anko is going to be upping her training. Luckily, Kakashi isn't completely out of commission. He's just going to be exhausted for a bit, and that might frustrate Anko a little bit, but she still has the rest of the Jonin senseis to help her with her training, and it won't be long until Kakashi is back on his feet. He's getting closer to like that beginning of Shippuden level of abilities, probably beginning to surpass it into like his mid Shippuden era, just before the Great War. He's starting to get to that level. Um, Beyond that, yes, nothing too much, nothing too crazy. Karin is actually waiting at home for her cousin Naruto, who's basically going to be taking on a big brother role. And beyond that, technically another relative in the form of Tsunade, since Tsunade is the granddaughter to Hashirama and Mito Uzumaki, and who became Mito Senju after marrying Hashirama. So technically another one of Uzumaki heritage, specifically another blonde Uzumaki. So yeah, they're still going to be on their search for Tsunade, and we will be picking up on the next part. We will be picking up on the ambush on the next part. So like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you did and didn't like about how I handled things. The storytelling, the pacing, handling fights. Give me all your criticisms that will help me improve. But if you're just gonna be a dick, don't even waste your time. Go do something else that you enjoy that doesn't come at the expense of other people. And yeah, I will see all of you in the next video. Hit that bell notification if you want to keep up to date with my future uploads, and I will see all of you in the next video. Bye bye.